Morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. If you can't, you might raise a hand or something like that. So we should probably start now. It's 2 minutes past 11, so we might as well kick off. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hot Topics in Dementia Research. Today it's hosted by the Dementia Research Network Ireland, DRNI, and the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland together on the topic of Team Up for Dementia Research. My name is Vanessa Moore. I'm the Scientific Project Manager for DRNI. Just to give you a small background about Hot Topics in Dementia, it's a webinar series hosted by DRNI over the past year or so, with the aim of providing an opportunity to hear from those working in basic science, clinical science, and social science as well, research, as well as people from people living with dementia and their families. So some of our previous webinars have been on topics such as Lewy body disorders, Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, hearing and vision impairment in dementia, data-driven innovation in dementia care, Parkinson's disease, and sex and gender dementia. So that's just to name a few. They're all available on the DRNI YouTube page. So if you want to have a look, you can find it if you search there. And you might have noticed when you came on that this webinar is being recorded. So we're aiming to put this up on the DRNI YouTube page as well. So we're delighted to have joined forces with the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland today for this webinar. So just to give you a little run through what we're going to do today. So first we have Ciara O'Reilly of the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. She's the Team Up for Dementia Research Coordinator. So she's going to talk about the service and explain a little bit about what it is. We'll then hear from Brenda Buckley, who's a Team Up member, and she'll share her experience of taking part in dementia research. Next up then would be Dr. Louise Hopper. She's an assistant professor in the School of Psychology in DCU. She's going to speak on the benefits of the Team Up for Dementia Research service for members of the dementia research community and also those living with dementia. Dr. Hopper will be followed then by DRNI's own Sean Keneally, consultant in geriatric medicine in Tala University Hospital and professor of medical gerontology in TCD. And last but very much certainly not least, chair of the DRNI Management Committee. So he's going to speak about the recently launched Dementia Trials Ireland and the opportunity that they present for both people with dementia and the research community. And finally then, Dr. Laura O'Philbine, Research and Policy Manager in the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, will put these kind of very exciting developments into the wider context of dementia in Ireland. So we're aiming for all of this to take around 35 to 40 minutes. After that, we'll have a Q&A session. So feel free at any stage to put any questions you might have into the Q&A box that should be down at the bottom of your screen there. Anything that pops into your head, feel free to pop it in there, and we'll hopefully get to all your questions at the end of the webinar. So I might hand over to you there, Ciara. Hopefully the technology will all work.
Hi, yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. With me. Okay, so you should be seeing the slideshow now. Great. Okay. There. Okay, fabulous. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to learn a little bit more about taking part in dementia research in Ireland. Just going to turn the mic up. My name is Ciara. I am the Research Project Officer with the Alzheimer's Society. Conscious that we have a very packed schedule, so I'm going to take you through a fairly brief presentation about Team Up for Dementia Research. We're just going to look a little bit about how the service came about, who takes part, how to get involved, and then the benefits of taking part in dementia research as well. So in July of 2021, in collaboration with the DRNI, the Alzheimer's Society launched its new service, so Team Up for Dementia Research. And this service connects people with an experience of dementia with opportunities to take part in ethically approved dementia research in Ireland. And it came about because if we consider it from a researcher perspective first, participant recruitment has long been a challenge. Historically, if you wanted to recruit participants for your study, it would have meant contacting your local service providers, dementia service providers, perhaps attending local Alzheimer's cafes or social clubs, or reaching out to people affected by dementia in the public eye. And these are all, completely acceptable recruitment avenues, but, often fraught with delays, which of course would impact on, budget and potentially the relevancy of research. And then when we consider this then from the perspective of people affected by dementia, we found that they know that dementia research happens, but they may not necessarily know how or where to go to get involved. So TeamUp for Dementia Research is that bridge between people affected by dementia and opportunities to take part in dementia research. So we do this we try to do this in a very streamlined and inclusive manner, and I'll go into that in a bit more in a moment. But you've heard me say people with an experience of dementia, and I say that intentionally because the service is available to people who are living with dementia. It could be a person who is supporting somebody with a diagnosis of dementia, or indeed it could be that you've previously provided care to somebody who has lived with a diagnosis of dementia. Or it could even be looser than that. It could just be that your best friend Susan has a diagnosis of dementia and you sometimes bring her to her doctor's appointments. They're all incredibly different experiences of dementia, but they are all equally relevant to dementia research. Because I think it's nice and hopeful for people to hear that the dementia research community looks at all aspects of dementia. So, and actually what's really nice is that we see that reflected in the types of research opportunities and projects that are being offered to the members. So I know on the call today, we have some members who are already TeamUp members. So I hope you don't mind me just going through the sign-up process. But for anyone who's not clued in already, it's a very simple sign-up process. So potential members register their interest online. And at that stage, they can opt to either sign up online, which takes 5 or 10 minutes. Or alternatively, if you prefer to speak to a member of the research team, you're very welcome to sign up over the phone. Sometimes that can take a bit longer if we're in the mood for chat, but that's totally fine. So we try to make sure that the opportunity to register to the service is done in a manner that's accessible to the individual. And that's important to us because we'll always strive to meet the person where they are with what they need. So if you're the kind of person who maybe feels you don't have the technical, know-how to sign up online, or, you might live quite remotely and the internet reception is crappy, which is definitely an issue. We're very happy to sign you up over the phone. We want to make sure that your experiences are not excluded from dementia research just because you don't have a strong internet signal. We sign people up, over the phone, on Zoom, by WhatsApp video call. So there are definitely ways and means to do it. And as for streamlining the service, what happens is when a person with an experience of dementia wants to register to the service, one of the very important things we do is we take note of their research interest preferences. So for instance, if a member wants to only hear about opportunities to take part in clinical trials, there's absolutely no point in offering them online surveys about service development. If you're a person who is living with a form of young onset dementia, for instance, and you're passionate about sharing your experiences and you only want to do that in, a face-to-face one-on-one experience with a researcher, if I'm offering you, online surveys or focus group opportunities, then I'm undermining your preferences. And sure, yes, that's going to lead to you becoming frustrated with the service. You're not going to want to take part in research anymore. And that's all those things we just want to avoid completely. So we want to make sure that the service is working for the participants as well, for the members of the service. So diversifying the participant pool. Research is improved by having more people involved, and TeamUp for Dementia Research has grown significantly since inception. So we're posting numbers in the hundreds now, which is fantastic, and we have a really strong geographical reach. So the TeamUp members represent not just people who live close to universities and hospitals, but those from small towns and rural locations around Ireland. One of our main aims is to ensure that nobody is excluded from dementia research just because of their proximity or lack thereof to a research institution. And this benefits not just the researcher, but the participants as well. So yes, we will have research projects which will require you to be on site, at a university or a hospital. But whether or not that TeamUp member decides to travel to the university or the hospital is completely at the discretion of that member. So the service supports the research community in a way that allows them to cast an extremely wide net during their recruitment process, which of course increases their chances of finding participants who are in a position to attend, an on-site project or, log in online from home. The age range of members, it's not really significant, but I just think it's a nice piece of information to share because it shows that, it really highlights the appetite for taking part in dementia research. And again, it harks back to representing that whole gamut of experiences of dementia. It's not just older people who are affected, people in their 20s are affected, people in their late teens, kids are obviously affected, but within the service we would cut off. So you do have to be 18 and over to become a member. This pie chart, it shows the kind of types of dementia that the TeamUp members have experience with. And the reason we record this information is because a researcher might get in touch with us wanting to avail of the service, and they'll send us what are known as inclusion criteria. So they tell us the kind of people that they need to take part in their research study. So for instance, there's a research opportunity available at the moment to the members, but it's specifically to people with an experience of mild cognitive impairment. So, you know, that's down here, 7% of people. So if a researcher gets in touch with me and says, you know, I need to speak to people with an experience of young onset dementia, I'll reach out to those members who match the criteria, and they're invited to take part. And actually, I'm about to play a video, but just before I do that, I do want to explain something to current members and potential new members. So no one is ever automatically enrolled in a study. You're invited to take part, and you decide if you have the time or the headspace to be involved. So if you agree to take part in a research study and then you change your mind, that is 100% okay. You could have, you know, said yes to a research study. You could have signed your consent form. You could have logged into the Zoom for a focus group. And if at that stage you decide, actually, do you know what, I don't want to take part, that's totally fine. You can walk away. There are no repercussions. We, the TeamUp service, and we, the research community, we know what we're asking. You know, we're asking you to give us your time. We're asking you to give us your experience. And if you feel, do you know what, I'm not in the mood to do that at the moment, that's totally fine. You can change your mind at any stage. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit serious. So what I'm going to do now is I have a lovely little video that we put together at the start of the summer. So we went out to the TeamUp members and we asked them, you know, just to why they wanted to become members of the service. So just with the will of the internet gods, this will hopefully play.
Sorry, Kira, the sound isn't playing there.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay. Well, listen, okay. I'm not going to try and fix that in the Zoom because I think I'd be here all day trying to do it. But within that video, it just explains people's different reasons for wanting to become members of the service. So I apologize that the sound has failed. They talk about their, you know, wanting to share their experiences and wanting to learn more about taking part in, or wanting to learn more about the different kinds of dementias that are out there. It's such a shame that didn't play, but look, these things happen. So really what they gave us there was their passion for taking part in research, you know, how important it was to them to figure out what they were facing into and what developments were out there. And by taking part in research, they felt that they were learning more about the research community, about dementia research and about dementia itself. So I've already touched on this very briefly, but we've been very fortunate to be able to offer the TeamUp members a whole variety of projects. This is just a really quick snapshot of it, but we've had everything from reminiscence and walking therapies to VR technology, pet robots, focus groups about young onset dementia, focus groups about developing services specific for the needs of older members of the LGBTQIA+ community. We've had intergenerational projects, we've had dementia and dance, so there really is something for everyone. And in a previous slide, I did share that the member breakdown is current and former family caregivers and people living with dementia. So we do have some projects that are available to all members and some projects that are specific to family carers and some that are specific to people living with dementia and some that are specific to former carers. So if you're registering to the service and you're a bit unsure about where your experiences are going to fall into the bigger picture, there is definitely something for everyone. And it's wonderful to be able to offer that to people. And we did survey the members earlier on this year to find out if there was anything within the service that should be improved or anything they would like us to see done differently. I'm delighted to say actually overall it was very positive feedback. And some of the things that the members have said is that they really appreciate that the timing of the projects kind of suited their working schedule. You know, some people were able to take part at lunchtime, that there's a certain flexibility involved in working with the researcher, and they felt that their studies were explained to them well, and that the research was very participative and enjoyable. which is fantastic because a lot of the members that were coming to us, or a lot of the TeamUp members, they're new to the research experience. And we'll often say that to people, you don't have to have any sort of research or academic background to take part in research studies now. Your lived experience is what we're hoping to engage with you on. So here's another couple of comments that we found, which is really nice. People said that they found it encouraging, to realize that they're being part of ongoing research into the effects of living with dementia, because it seems that it's often overlooked. They felt that appropriate questions were being asked and that there was a good variety and that there was space to provide their own experience. And I'll linger on this one for a moment, because I think what happens is when you log into perhaps a focus group or in an interview situation, you want to make sure that you're being heard. And that's what the feedback has been, is that people are giving their experience and their time, sharing their insights, and they feel that they're actually being listened to, which is great. And yet we have that mix of, being able to do things over the phone or online. We've had incidents where researchers are able to actually go and meet with TeamUp members or participants face to face, which is fantastic. The research, I suppose what COVID has taught us all is that we have to be flexible, and the research community has really rallied to that. I'm going to skip over my next slide because it was going to be another video and I suspect it may not work, so that's totally fine. These are just a couple more comments that we had from the members. I really like this one down here in the corner, Agnes with her dog. And she says it's fun and that it's not all serious, because what she's found, and actually what came up in one of the videos that didn't work, is that people find a sense of community when they are taking part in dementia research. And obviously, if you're here in this webinar, you're obviously already interested in dementia research. So if you're on the fence at all, or if you're already a member and you haven't matched with the study, there are opportunities out there. It's just a matter of time. What we've been very fortunate in that the service has grown so much in terms of membership numbers. But what's happened alongside of that on a parallel track is that the demand has come in from the research community as well. So there really are so many opportunities available. We have things going out this week and next week, and there are things that we've had to pause and say, we're going to have to wait until the new year, because we just don't want to, that's the one thing. The other thing, I suppose, we don't want to bombard the members. So as members of the service, you're completely at your right to reach out to us and say, do you know what, I want to change my research preferences because I'm hearing too much about a particular type of study, or I'm no longer interested in focus groups. I only want to take part in surveys. We have a couple of members who aren't online at all, and they take part in telephone interviews, and we can always get a survey printed out and posted out to you. So there, like I said, there are ways and means of being involved. So very briefly then here, this is just, these slides will be available to everyone after the fact. So within them, there will be built-in links, and you'll be able to find your way to our research blog and our research newsletter if you're not already receiving that by email, because they're very informative, not just about the TeamUp for Dementia Research Service, but about developments within the research community, as well as things that are happening within the ASI research team. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at the moment, and I'm going to invite Brenda, who is a TeamUp member, to speak with us, because Brenda joined the service a little over a year ago and has had a number of opportunities to take part in research studies. So Brenda, do you want to unmute yourself there for a quick second? And I'll just ask you a couple of questions to share your experience with the attendees today.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So Brenda, I think what's nice, and you and I have spoken about this before, is that when you initially were going to take part, when you wanted to sign up to the TeamUp service, you weren't really sure. You were a bit trepidatious at first. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, first of all, I didn't know what the heck a PPI was. And Kira kept saying, we need people to act as PPIs, blah, blah. And I had to go to Mr. Google to find out what a PPI was. And when I did, I found that very interesting. I met up with Kira purely by chance. I opened an email that was a newsletter from the ASI, and there was a little snippet about Kira and the work going on. And I had been looking after my husband for almost 10 years at that stage, almost 12 now. And he had gone into care just before I contacted Kira. And even though I'm still caring for him, and I think that's very important to say, my life was suddenly different. And I was grieving, and I needed something to help me with that. And I have to honestly say that being part of the TeamUp research was just fabulous. It has made me so aware of all the work that's being done. that I never knew about. And
Brenda, that's wonderful. I might just come in there for a second, if that's okay, because what Brenda does, Brenda doubles. She's a team member, but she is also a member of our Dementia Research Advisory team. But I think what I find lovely about this is that you're very representative of the dementia community, Brenda. I think people see themselves and their experiences reflected in your experience. And I think, you convey that really well, your passion for research. And although you wanted to take part from, the outset, you weren't really sure how to get involved or, how it was going to work for you. You've actually managed to, accommodate us, as the research community and take part in lots of different ways. I think, do you want to talk a bit about it, being able to fit in research around your care and responsibilities? Because you've already said it yourself, you are still providing care to Aidan.
Absolutely, and there was a very poignant time just about 6 months ago when Aidan became suddenly very ill, more ill than he was. And I decided I was going to step back from everything for a little while. And I contacted Kira and the 2 research groups I was committed to at that stage. And the support I got from you all was absolutely lovely. I got cards and letters from the research people that I was working with. And I just felt you all had my back. And as things resolved themselves, I couldn't wait to get back again. The important thing, I think, is when somebody like me gets to a certain stage in their life, you now want to try and help the people who are coming after you. And sadly, certainly help for carers and looking after carers is, very, very limited. And the way diagnoses are made to people and all of that is so, so important. So in any way that I can help through that research is important to me. And I have to say that any comments I've ever made to people doing research into various aspects of the disease have been listened to and have been heard. Because as somebody who is just living with somebody with dementia, I think sometimes I know a lot more, or we know a lot more than the academics who are putting together the research, even in the way they, phrase something or look at something. We have the perspective that's really important.
That's brilliant, Brenda. Thank you so much. And actually, Brenda's experiences, or Brenda's comments there, they're not the first time I've heard things like that. And when I speak to potential TeamUp members, it is that selflessness that I hear an awful lot over the phone. It's people wanting to give back, they want to help the people coming up behind them, and sometimes the comments can be, oh, I don't think this is going to be of any benefit to me, but if I can help the people coming behind me, and I'm quick to remind people that actually it can be, of course, it can be of benefit to you, and it's okay to be selfish and want to learn and take part in dementia research for your own learnings as well. So we've been very lucky to really welcome a whole host of members. Brenda, thank you very much. I think we might pass the screen across to Vanessa, who's going to invite our next speaker, if that's okay. Thanks a million.
Great, thank you so much, and thanks a lot, Brenda. Very interesting to hear just that first-hand perspective, and what it gives you, but also what you give. It really is a great service to facilitate that. And thanks a million to Kira as well for your presentation. Yeah, unfortunately the internet gods they tend not to like videos, but next time. But thanks a million for your presentation as well. So just to say then, if anybody is interested in contacting, maybe signing up, would they contact yourself, Kira, in the Alzheimer's Society?
Absolutely. So when we send around the slides later on, it does have a link at the end to the particular section on the ASI website about TeamUp, but it also has contact details for the TeamUp service. And I'm happy, myself and the rest of the research team are very happy to answer any questions about it.
Great, brilliant, thanks so much. And just to remind everybody as well to throw in any questions that you have in the Q&A, and we'll get to them after the speakers. So I'll introduce our next speaker now. We're delighted to have Dr. Louise Hopper with us, Assistant Professor in the School of Psychology in DCU, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her experience. So over to you, Louise. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Vanessa. So what I'd like to do today is just give you just a little bit of insight into the benefits that researchers have found using TeamUp for dementia. So as Kira mentioned, that there are one of the biggest challenges really when you are conducting research is the challenge of actually recruiting the right people to your research. So, you know, you could have a really good network of people that you've worked with before, but often it's quite difficult to find exactly the right people for a particular study that you're looking at. We quite often heavily rely on clinics, on our own networks, on word of mouth. We would do things like, you know, anything from kind of recruiting in, you know, on social media or in national newspapers or parish newsletters, for example, to talking to memory clinics, to the Alzheimer's Society, and so on. But what tends to happen, or certainly until relatively recently, what tended to happen was you would get often the same kind of small group or subset of people who volunteer for research. And that's partly because we weren't reaching everybody in our bid to try and recruit participants for research. But also what we often find is that when somebody actually gets involved in research, typically they enjoy it and they come back for more. So they like to do more research studies. Often the participants live reasonably close to a university, whether that's ourselves in DCU or UCD or NUI Galway, Maynooth, so on. People who live closer to universities tend to be more aware of the activities of the university, or maybe more inclined to be involved in research. And then therefore that tends to lead to participants being maybe more city dwellers or living in the suburbs, and maybe less from some of the rural parts of the country. And over time, what can happen is even though these individuals are being really, really great with their time, and we would be absolutely lost without them, what there is a danger that because we're only hearing a small number of voices, that their particular experience or set of experiences gradually comes over time to represent everybody's set of experience. And that then means that, again, over time, research can become a little bit biased. And that's what we're trying to avoid at all costs. We're trying to make sure that everybody gets a chance to be heard. And this is where TeamUp comes along and really has been one of the kind of main solutions to our ability to be able to kind of find the right people for the right study. So I suppose its most immediate help for researchers is that there's a set of people with dementia, people with mild cognitive impairment, family members of people with dementia, caregivers. There's a whole range of people who are, we know, are interested in doing research. So we have, I suppose, a fertile recruitment ground. And again, as Kira mentioned, we would give information about our study. All of our studies would have ethical approval. They could range from very small studies to very large studies, but we would be able to tell the TeamUp group, this is the kind of person or people that we're looking for. So there's a way of matching participants to research, maybe screening participants for studies or clinical trials, for example. But the other benefit that maybe isn't as immediately obvious to researchers, or to me as a researcher, for example, is that it promotes the whole idea of doing research. So that kind of citizen science, that idea of, getting more involved with research, because what it does is it makes people aware of a lot of the studies that are being conducted. Even if it's not something that you yourself might be interested in, you might know somebody else who is. So this sort of word of mouth piece is still important in attracting new members to the TeamUp database, let's say. And I suppose the other thing I wanted to say is that, we talk about research as a noun, as a sort of a singular thing, and it's anything but. Research can mean so many different things. So you might say to yourself, gosh, I don't know, I'm a bit hesitant to sign up because I'm not really sure what research is, or maybe I'm not sure what skills I have, or what they're going to need me to do. And I suppose one of the things that I really want to do is I want to kind of sort of reassure you that there are so many different types of research projects out there, and because you get a chance as the person who's signing up to TeamUp, you get a chance to say what you're interested in and what you're not interested in. And those interests may change over time, and you can amend those over time. So we have what we call, lots of exploratory studies. So these would be studies where maybe people come together, and it could be in person or it could be online, for workshops, for focus groups. And usually we're teasing out what people think about a topic, or we're trying to design a new intervention, for example. Or they could be intervention studies. So there could be a particular, maybe it's a psychosocial intervention, maybe it's arts for dementia, maybe it's a community walking group. So there could be a number of interventions that are based out in your communities, based in your home. It could be an intervention that's we're looking at specifically tailoring to people's needs. So that's much more a sort of a one-to-one type experience. Then there would also be what I would call individual or family studies, or in research lingo, these would often be called cohort studies, where we take a cohort or a group of people that have something in common with each other. And it might be then that we work with them to identify their particular needs or unmet needs, or how they use the health service, or barriers to using the health service. Or again, it could be looking at, what are the different ways that we could provide support that enable people to stay at home for longer, as an example. And then you have a sort of what I'm going to call a more formal or larger kind of studies that would be drug or intervention trials. And I know Sean will talk to you about those in a couple of minutes, so I won't go into those in any more detail. So really, I suppose I just want to wrap up by saying that, I am a researcher. I'm very enthusiastic. I'm passionate about research. I'm also I'm someone who had a family member who has been through the whole journey with dementia. So for me, it's both a sort of a personal and a professional interest that I have in research. And I want to just leave you with the idea that there are so many different types of research out there. So I'd encourage you to dip your toe in the water, try one, see what you think, see if it's for you, and consider signing up to TeamUp for Dementia Research, because it's both a fun and enjoyable experience, and hopefully one that will have a benefit to everyone who comes along with their experience of dementia after us. So thanks very much, Ciara and Vanessa, for the opportunity to chat to you today.
So much. That was really interesting. It's great to hear, just, I suppose, putting it into context, just the wide scope actually of research that is out there, that exists, and the mutual benefits also, but even what exactly does research do, what does it entail. So really interesting, and I especially like that, to dip your toes in the water. Very good. So next up we have Professor Sean Keneally from Tala University Hospital, Trinity and DRNI. Sean is here to talk to us a little bit about Dementia Trials Ireland. So over to you, Sean.
Hi, good morning, everybody. If I can manage to get my slides to open up on the full screen, get that down here. And excellent. So good morning, everyone. Really enjoyed the talk so far, and it's I suppose it's great. I'm still recovering from jet lag, having been fortunate to have been over at the Clinical Trials and Alzheimer's Disease meeting in San Francisco last week, where we heard about some exciting trials that are ongoing and some trials that are reporting out, and we can chat about those later on if people are interested in talking about those. I'm going to chat very briefly this morning on Dementia Trials Ireland, which, as you can see from this banner heading, was launched in December 2022. So we're relatively new, albeit we have been working in the background for give or take the last year or so. And my colleague, Professor Irasima Leroy from Trinity, is the lead on it, and I'm co-lead on this with her. And really, our mission statement is to enable every person in Ireland living with or at risk of developing dementia access to clinical trials. And so when we look at the whole context, and I think Ciara touched on this later on, so less than 0.05% of the 55,000 people with dementia have an involvement in clinical trials. This compares to about 20% of people who have been diagnosed with cancer. And when we look at the research spend between cancer and dementia, it's 30 times more for cancer. This isn't in any way to diminish the importance of cancer as a condition. It's really just to highlight the fact that we have a long way to go in making sure that funders are aware of the importance of dementia and the need to develop therapies and to counteract sometimes what I would call the therapeutic nihilism, which is oftentimes most pervasive within the community of both clinicians and often even people who are living with the condition and advocates around the potential to develop treatments for dementia. So we just need to always be advocating and promoting that importantly. So to increase to just 1% would be a very significant increase within an Irish context. But it's still a huge, if we look at the Prime Minister's challenge in the UK, which is to have a 15% benchmark for people who are living with dementia to be able to participate in clinical trials. So we have a considerable way to go before we're even being within the same zone of trying to achieve that. So our mission in Dementia Trials Ireland is really over 60 months. So it's a 5-year HRB funded clinical trials network. And it is to really work with research users at the core to co-develop and grow and support a world-class dementia trials infrastructure here in Ireland, to treble our capacity to conduct dementia trials. At the moment, we have 3 hospitals in Dublin that would do clinical trials on a relatively regular basis, and our hope is to really increase the scope for trials, especially outside of Dublin and Cork and Galway over the next few years, to support the delivery of Ireland's strategic policies for dementia as well. And this is what a clinical trials network framework does. It helps us facilitate the coordination and strategic planning for the network. It gives us seed funding to support how we evolve trial activity. It ensures that we have appropriate governance and that we're linking in with other stakeholders such as TeamUp, the Alzheimer's Society, DRNI, and other organisations, and to proactively establish and grow industry and international partnerships, because the answer to definitive treatments for Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia won't be you won't be grown from one part of it. And this is really reflected in this multifaceted and multidisciplinary, if you like, a community of clinicians and allied health professionals from geriatrics, psychiatry, nursing, neurology, other allied health professionals, and working across all different settings, be it community, nursing home, hospital, and even within palliative care settings. So it is a very broad focus, and this is really reflective of the evolution. So, my good colleague and mentor Brian Lawler, would have started the ball rolling in the early 2000s in establishing the first memory clinic in an Irish context, and would have also been the original chair of Dementia Research Network Ireland. And in 2014, DRNI kind of was further founded and expanded, and then with the Dementia Trials Ireland. So there has been this steady evolution of multidisciplinary, multifaceted integration and inclusion of other disciplines and organisations to incorporate into Dementia Trials Ireland. And really, the panel of research users are at the core and working alongside 39 other professionals, and it's clinicians from 4 specialties and allied health professionals. It's clinical academics, basic neurosciences, neural engineers, connected health specialists, methodologists, administrators. So it's really, what we've done is we've pulled together a real coalition of the willing, to deliver this clinical trials platform. And this is just reflective of where everybody, you can see there's people from industry, from hospitals, from advocacy, from all different backgrounds, and from academia, of course. The research portfolio is really to go right across that spectrum. And it's funny, like, I mean, whenever I see slides like this, it reminds me, prior to, 5 to 10 years ago, we didn't talk about Alzheimer's disease and dementia even within this context. We talked about it within the context of severity of symptoms. We now understand that there is a whole, potential 20 years in advance of even mild symptoms, whereby, in particular in Alzheimer's disease, these proteins are accumulating in the brain. So there is this focus on pre-dementia and looking at, how different interventions can reduce one's lifetime risk for developing it. There's prodromal dementia, which is often mild cognitive impairment, where somebody has mild memory symptoms. And then there's looking at people who are living, to support people living well with dementia, be that in their own homes or be that within a nursing home. So it's really looking at interventions right across that spectrum. And I know, when we talk about clinical trials, sometimes people automatically think of medications and drugs, and that's one aspect of the clinical trials track, the dementia trials initiative, but non-drugs are also just as important. But the clinical trial structure, what it does is it is a very established methodology whereby you are comparing interventions. So you are looking at an intervention compared to a placebo, and you're looking to see that it works. And sometimes those drugs can be industry sponsored or can be investigator led, and we've had some successful studies that have looked at that. And non-drug interventions similarly can be psychosocial therapies or device therapies, and can be industry sponsored or investigator led. So actually we're very open with regards whom it is we would be partnering with, but we have quite a strict and robust governance piece around the acceptance of trials and the trials that we look to partner with, and that we can. And this slide, while it's very, very busy, just kind of shows that we have these committees and advisory boards who review each of the applications for different trials, so that we ensure that the trials that we take on board are high value trials that are likely to be beneficial to people who are living with memory difficulties or dementia or at risk of same. So this is the team as it is at the moment. As I said, myself and Professor Leroy as lead and co-lead, Dr. Miller, who's in as started as network manager, Lara Gibney and Karen Meenan, who are network coordinator and PPI lead. And that's part then of an extended group of co-applicants which come from clinical, bioengineering, research, radiology, basic science, methodology kind of backgrounds, all with very diverse diverse interests to contribute to the partnership. And we're very fortunate to have a very high profile international scientific advisory board, yet again reflective of different backgrounds with regards to interest in different types of dementia in different populations, including intellectual disability, and from a different clinical backgrounds as well. And when you have one of these kind of grants, you're broken down into different work packages, which kind of are really the nuts and bolts. They're the map as to how you're going to achieve your goals. So our first work package is looked at is trial readiness, and Professor Lawler and Dr. Ronan O'Keefe down at Cork are in charge of that. And that really will look at how we get sites ready to be able to do some of these studies. And one of the key barriers at the moment is in people being trained up in doing the memory tests and the specialist tasks. And we just had a national cognitive assessment 2-day event in November 22, where we were actually able to train up an awful lot of individuals who hadn't done these assessments before, which gives us new scope and new ability to do those on those sites. The other part is about mentorship through those buddies and including trainees in the trials. My colleague Suzanne Timmins, also from Cork, is looking at trial development, which is how we look at new funding proposals and how we go about seeking industry sponsored trials and making and building that network with industry and ensuring. And a large part of what we were doing over at CTAD in San Francisco was also making sure that industry and other investigators were aware of Ireland as a trial centre and promoting that international if you like calling card for people to consider us hosting trials here. And then Justin Kinsella, a neurologist in Vincent's, is the head of the work package looking at trial delivery. And that's really about making sure that when we say we take on a trial, when we get into partnership with an organisation, that we're able to deliver on it. And recruitment is a key part of that. And this is where our partnership with TeamUp is so important. But also how we support and engage with clinical principal investigators at each partner hospital, work with the clinical research facilities in the large hospitals, and how we monitor trial outcomes. And then the patient, person, and public involvement is the Fort work package, and led by Professor Mary McCarran, and that's really cross-cuts. It's not really a defined work package. It really cross-cuts entirely across the program, and we really have a strong emphasis on people with dementia and their perspectives being represented throughout, and that this is this is work that we're doing with them, not to or for them, and really trying to increase public awareness of dementia research. And that's where this webinar is so important, and trying to make it available, and for us as clinicians to be able to provide the opportunities, because I completely agree with what Kira and Louise were saying. Is I see my role is to present the opportunity, not necessarily it will be then for people to decide when they wish and when suits them to participate in it. But what I think is a really important part of the post-diagnostic process, as it is for other conditions such as cancer, but also for be it rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis or any condition, is for people to have an awareness that there is progression within the field and that they have opportunity to participate. And just as we have a stellar PPI group, which is chaired and led by Karen Meenan, who have been really instrumental at raising awareness. We're incredibly supportive around the time of the launch and in advising us around the launch, and in ensuring that, if you like, ourselves as clinicians stay true to the core, true to the cause, and kind of giving us really helpful insights with regards what is meaningful outcomes, which has of course become a hot topic in light of the recent lecanemab readout results. And this is Kevin McCabe, who was a huge support for us when we were putting together the application, and even when we were doing our interviews in applying to get this grant, and really emphasizing that it's every person's right to participate in clinical research. So I'm going to leave it there now, but very happy to discuss further any of the issues or any of the anything further that anybody wants to talk about with regards to dementia trials.
That's great. Thanks a million, Sean, for that whistle-stop tour, really, of DTI. It's a big, complex project, so it's great to get a bit of an insight into it. And hopefully, a lot of really good things will happen over the next few years. I'll pass over now to Dr. Lara O'Philbin. She is the Research and Policy Manager at the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. She's going to put all of this now that we've spoken about into context. So the floor is yours, Lara.
I feel very unfortunate that I have to follow such brilliant speakers, but it's really just to round up the morning and to say thank you to everyone for your time and for your attention. But just to say, this is a really exciting time in the dementia space, and it's a really exciting time for research as well. Sean mentioned there lecanemab. That's the first drug treatment in 30 years with consistent evidence that the progression of Alzheimer's disease can actually be slowed down. And now look, it's only a small effect and it might only help a small number of people. We have to wait for the regulators to consider all of the evidence. But scientifically, this is huge. And that was all powered by research, and as a result, we now have some hope for a possible treatment that could slow down the course of Alzheimer's disease. So we are at a time now where there is real momentum in the space, and Sean has just described how we're building capacity for clinical trials here in Ireland, so people who are living here can actually have the same opportunities as those in other countries like the UK and the States. And I think it's an initiative that we're very fortunate to have. But then there's the other research that might not get the same media spotlight, but it's still really exciting, it's still innovative, and it still powers change. So we're a really small country, but we have such a high standard of dementia research that's run by hugely qualified and passionate professionals like Sean, like Louise, like so many people that I actually see here online today. And at the same time, we have an altruistic population in Ireland. People want to make a difference. You know, Ciara spoke about that, Brenda spoke about that. People, even though it might not help them, they want to take part in research and make a change. So we have everything kind of, I suppose, lining up in our favour here in Ireland, which is incredibly exciting. And a disease like dementia, which has many different subtypes, not just Alzheimer's disease, but that requires, I suppose, a multifaceted approach. And therefore we need to engage in a range of research. So research like clinical trials, but also service improvement, prevention, developing, evaluating psychosocial interventions, technology, perception, attitudes, and even health economics. And we need all of these pieces to be able to support people who are affected by dementia and to ultimately to fight against it. So as Ciara mentioned, TeamUp for Dementia Research is obviously a great way to, I think someone said, to dip your toe in the water. And that's exactly what it is, because you can see what's happening and then you can decide if you want to participate or not. And I know this probably sounds a bit dramatic to end, but we are at this really exciting point in history, and through research, all of us together can be a part of it. And I think that's the only way that we can do it as well. So thank you for your time.
For that, Laura. Yeah, no, I think you're really right. You know, it's really interesting to hear when you put it into context that it really is a crossroads. So it's a very exciting time. And we have a few questions that have come in, so I might go through them. And if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A. We're more than happy to answer them. We still have about 10 minutes, so feel free to ask anything you want. There was a couple of questions come in around kind of accessing. So how people in rural areas, could they access, you know, research, Viva research participants through, you know, for example, Zoom? But then another question, which is the other side of that coin, that some people who might be interested in participating in research actually find it very difficult to navigate platforms like Zoom or, you know, Teams, which is my personal hate platform, and and all these things. You know, is there any way to kind of support those people who want to participate, or you know, potential participants that you might you know, facilitate that somehow? So I don't know, Ciara, Louise, maybe do you want to go first, or Ciara?
Yeah, I might come in first if that's okay. Thanks, Vanessa. It's a great question. And what we do within the TeamUp service is we invite people to tell us what kind of research they want to take part in, how they want to take part in research. So at the very outset, when they're first engaging with us, they say to us, do you know what, I'm no good on Zoom, or you know, I've got a really poor internet connectivity here, so I don't want those kind of research opportunities. So we make sure that we're bringing those people the kind of research that is accessible to them. So if, for instance, we have a person who's living in the middle of Tipperary and just cannot manage on a computer, that person has opted to only take part in research that they can do either face-to-face or over the phone. So there are ways and means, and it means that we are meeting that person where they need, that we're supporting them to engage in research in a manner that is accessible to them. So they're able to tell us, rather than us dictating to them, you know, you have to log into the Zoom to take part in a research opportunity. That's definitely not the case. It is absolutely up to the individual to tell us what they would like to do.
And maybe if I could just add to what Ciara has said there, you know, if you're interested, for example, let's say in learning more about Zoom, or learning more about how to use some of the different technologies, then, you know, we're very, very open to actually having some sort of support and some training around that for our projects. So we really want this to be a kind of a win-win. We're very, you know, we're very concerned to make sure that our participants get something from the process as well. And if that's supporting you to you know, learn how to use a particular app on your smartphone, or how to download Zoom and get it up and running, then, you know, we're very happy to do that. We have had a number of projects during the pandemic, as you can imagine, where we all jumped onto Zoom and had to sort of learn together. So we have some nice sort of materials that we've built up, and little videos that can kind of help show you how it works. And we're more than happy to support a potential participant to do some of that. All you would need to do is ask.
I mean, definitely the pandemic made us all, whether we wanted to or not, that we had to use certain platforms. But, you know, it's great to know that the support is there if, you know, if you're fundamentally very uncomfortable with the platforms that exist. There was another question then as well about TeamUp specifically. How often would members hear about research opportunities? Kira, you might take that one.
So absolutely, that's actually again dictated by the TeamUp members. So when I say that it's person-centered and streamlined, I mean I'm singing that on purpose. So for instance, if you sign up to the service and you say, do you know what, I'm not really sure what kind of research I'd like to take part in. Can I say yes to everything at the moment? And then I'll decide. We say absolutely. If you said yes to every kind of research, you're likely to match with more research opportunities. So you'll hear from us on a more regular basis. But if you come to us and you already know, actually, do you know what, I only want to hear about genetics research, or I only want to take part in clinical trials, you will only hear from us when those opportunities arise and you match the inclusion criteria. So what we've said to the members is say yes to what suits you best at the moment, and then we can revisit it. If you decide, you know, I've had 3 months of online surveys, or I've had 6 months of clinical trials, and that doesn't really interest me anymore, we can refresh your options. And it's, you know, it's an amenable service. So we'll always try and cater to the individual's needs and interests. Is that okay?
So before we go, I might just ask Sean to say something quickly, just a little bit about lecanemab, and kind of, you know, just to give a brief, just, you know, considering you were in San Francisco last week and just, you know, everything happening around it.
Yeah, I mean, so there's we're now in the post-revisionist phase of lecanemab. So we've kind of gone through the full cycle of hearing about it, getting excited about it, being depressed about it, and now kind of landing somewhere around about where we probably need to be, which is, you know, this is tremendous news. It is exactly as Laura said, it is a first medical intervention. There are caveats, but there will always be caveats for therapies. I think the piece that's often forgotten, and even amongst the clinical community when we're discussing these therapies, is that we're looking at a treatment to remove one protein from the brain, but there are multiple other factors going on in the brain at any one time. So removing one protein is always going to just have, you know, you're not going to probably see a dramatic effect. What you're looking for is a signal that there is a positive effect. But for example, lecanemab is a medicine that targets the protein amyloid, but we know that there is tau, but we also know that there is, you know, blood vessel disease or vascular disease in most people's brains. We know that there's a protein called TDP43 in most people's brains. We know that there's a protein called alpha-synuclein, which we see in Lewy body in most people's brains. All of those factors contribute to cognitive impairment. So when you remove one of them, you're hoping to see that you're on the right track, that by removing this protein, you're causing some beneficial effect. The downstream effects are probably going to be far more significant than what you see in an 18-month or 2-year study. And especially how we measure these effects in trials. You don't see big dramatic effects on these studies in the manner in which we measure them. So what was really impactful about lecanemab data is consistently right across. So we look at outcomes from the point of view of almost 10 different measures. And right across all of those measures, there was a consistent signal of improvement. Not of huge magnitude, but most of the people I see with mild cognitive impairment, which is what these people were, had little or no memory symptoms. Very few of them have a notable change over 18 months anyway. So when you're comparing two groups, one who received the medicine, one who didn't, you rarely see a very notable change over that period of time. What they did though is they did find a change, and they found a very, you know, what would be a modest clinical change. If that was where you were going to, you know, if that was the sum total of what we expect this medicine to do, I think people wouldn't be as excited as they are. But I'm actually, when you understand the process of the fact that we see symptoms that have evolved over 20 years of proteins being laid down, and you see a change over 18 months, that's what gets people. And that's where, if you like, you know, scientists and clinicians who work within, that's why this is a pretty much an important game changer, because it is the first medicine that does that. Now, part of the other reason of the caution around it is it's going to require huge system changes to deliver this. And I think we need to be, you know, so expectations need to be managed with regards to how we can get access to MRI machines and PET machines. and even clinical services, to be honest, to be making the level of sophisticated diagnosis that we need for this. We're not there. And I think that's an important piece, but we shouldn't be negative on the basis that we don't have those services. We wouldn't accept that for cancer. And I, as a clinician, certainly won't accept that for dementia. The impetus is on us, and the need and the urgency on us is to get those services in place to ensure that we can develop this. And what I would expect, and anybody who's at these kind of clinical trials events would know, is this is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. What we have is a raft of treatments which will hopefully be unfolding over the next decade. And anybody who's able to see those treatment pipelines can see that. And all of this is to enable, exactly as Louise said, to enable people to live well with dementia. I don't know that we're ever going to get to the stage of preventing dementia. I would have an ambition as a clinician, and I know that there are scientists who have an ambition, in their scientific endeavors to prevent it. But I think we can enable and support people, along with all of the other holistic and social care strategies that need to be researched, brain health approaches. We can enable people to live much better with it, and much more, have, as fulfilling and their own preferences in how they accept risk, because there is also going to be risks with these treatments, as there are for oncology treatments. But how we communicate those is going to be really, really important. But I think, it's a time, it's okay to allow ourselves a little bit of joy and a little bit of hope. And this has certainly been the first time that we've had that opportunity, I think, as conclusively as this in the Alzheimer's community. By the same token, of course, there's lots of caveats.
It's just really interesting to get that kind of wider perspective, and even as you say, it's the end of the beginning. That's a really good way of putting it, I think. Just conscious of time, we've got 2 minutes over time, but I think it was worth it to hear Ishan's just talking about it, because it's we're going to be hearing more about it, not less. So it was very good to get that insight. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who took part today. It's been great to hear everybody, and it was lovely to have so many people attending. So thank you so much to the participants. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks to all our speakers: Ciara Riley, Brenda Buckley, Louise Hopper, Sean Keneally, Laura O'Philbeen. Thanks so much. Special thanks to the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland for doing this webinar with us, and especially thank you to Ciara Riley for helping putting all this together. We couldn't have done it without you, so thank you so much, and pleasure working with you. Also a special thank you to Brenda Buckley as well. It really adds so much extra to get that that first-hand experience, so thanks so much. Like I said, this will be available on the DRNI YouTube page, hopefully sooner rather than later. I just have to figure out how to upload it first. Once I've that done, it'll be there for you to see. So thanks so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Brandon. Thanks. Bye-bye.